Hey boys and girls, welcome back to Munro Live, and I am here with the wonderful John McElroy. Thank you so much for
Here
coming.
I am.
Yes, and Happy New Year. Yes.
Happy New Year, right.
So,
A
John,
month into the year.
it's been a month into the year, and I haven't had you on my show for quite some time.
Yeah.
And we saw each other at the electronics show, and it got such great response. I figured we have to give the buying public more, well, even if they're not buying. So anyway, I'm very happy to have you here, and I think what I'd like to do today is let's kind of tip down what's going. Well, maybe tip might be the wrong word. I was going to say tip over the apple cart. Actually, I was going to say the cart, but we can't say that. But anyways, tip over the apple cart a little bit and find out what everybody thinks about the way EVs are moving. Now, I made a lot of comments that some of which you may not have agreed with, but some of them are coming true. So I'd like to find out what you think is going on and why people are going in this direction. And we'll find out, we'll have some fun, find out how many things we can actually agree on and which ones we can argue about.
Well,
Yeah.
We'll have plenty of both.
Yes, I'm
plenty
sure
that
we
we
will.
agree on and
Yeah.
plenty that we see a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So look, the EV revolution is underway. And as you know, I was a big skeptic, total skeptic. Yeah, heavens forbid. Because I knew everything that was wrong with EVs. I knew every problem that they were going to face. And slowly but surely, boom, 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 the industry, led by Tesla, started knocking those issues down.
Yeah.
And, to the point where, and especially what changed my mind is when Tesla, I think it was 2019, posted a net profit of well over $1 billion for the full year, GAAP numbers. And that's when I went, okay, boom, they proved it. They can do it. It can be done.
Yeah.
And that's what switched me completely. But, whether it was recycling or was an EV really cleaner than an ICE, even if it's running on, the electricity from coal and all that's been solved. So I switched, and now there's a lot of people who are very interested in getting EVs. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of people who they don't believe in climate change at all.
Yeah.
They think EVs are stupid. They think the government's trying to shove them down their throat, and they want nothing to do with them. And I think that those people could represent up to 40% of the car buying public.
Current, that's probably going to be about true.
Right.
But they do have a name for those. They're Luddites. They've been around for quite some time.
Right.
But anyway, one of the things that I thought was kind of amazing. I haven't been to the golf show, the PGA show that's held in Orlando, Florida, but I was there last week, and I was shocked because it used to be that most of these golf courses and whatnot, they wanted ICE vehicles because engines were good. Now, in wandering around and looking at everything I saw, people are selling batteries. People are selling modules
For the golf cars.
For golf cars, electric motors. I mean, I have never seen so much enthusiasm for EVs as I have for the golf community.
You redesigned Easy Goes, right?
No.
I said the wrong name.
Oh
Damn it.
my
I knew
God,
I would
that was
get it wrong.
Club Car.
Club Car.
Yeah, we took them from 32% to 80% in the first
Market
year.
share.
Yeah, in market share in the first year, and they made a tremendous amount of money.
So are they going electric?
They are. Well, we designed the car for electric. It started off electric, and then because it was easier to figure out how to go to the engine, the ICE engine. So we figured, let's take the hard one and then we'll shoehorn the other one in. But I would say that just drifting around, looking at and then there's a ton of different golf cars now. There must have been 30 of them there. And looking at all the golf cars and whatnot, I'm assuming that about 70, maybe even higher percentage of the golf cars sold are electric.
It's a no-brainer, right?
It is a no-brainer. I mean, think about it. Gasoline costs money. Oil changes cost money. Brakes, they don't usually need to have brakes on an electric car. You just pull your foot off the accelerator and regen will slow you down. Brakes, there's no brake pads needed.
And noise. I mean,
And
you're on a
there's-
golf course.
and
You don't
that's-
want the stupid engine starting
And
up.
that's the
Just as
climax.
you're about to get
Yeah.
that putt song.
Yeah. I think these guys actually do that stuff on purpose to win whatever prizes there might be. I don't golf, so. But anyway, at the end of the day, I was really shocked at the transition and talking to people about how much savings they've got and how much more profit they can put into the golf courses. And these guys are there to make money. They're not to just let old guys run around and whack balls. The job is money for shareholders. And I got basically my earful. And the tragedy was almost nobody knows who Munro Live is. And it was great because
Maybe now they will if they're going electric.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But I do know one thing for sure. They know a lot about golf, guys that play golf. I mean, that is something they do know about. And so consequently, everything drifted on to things that I know nothing about. Yeah. And so I would find out what I wanted to find out. How much electric are you doing? How much this? And then I'd ta-ta and then scoot away before I had to story about Arnold Palmer or something like that.
I used to play golf, but I quit when I found out that the more you play, the worse you get.
I don't know. I started off pretty bad. I don't know how you could get any worse than. I think when I first started out, I got something like 40 or something like that on the first hole. People gave up golf after seeing me play. But anyway, let's move on to the big stuff that's going on in the world right now, and I'm guessing that based on some of the comments that I got, the death threats and whatnot, not so many people were thrilled when I said something along the lines of, "Hey, if you want to pay more money for an ID4, get an Audi." I think I think VW has gone down the path of General Motors in the 70s and 80s. Remember, they whether it was a Chevy or a Pontiac or an Oldsmobile or a Cadillac, same car, different door handles or a different paint job or something.
Right.
When I saw the Audi come in the back, I was totally blown away. I couldn't believe my eyes. From the side, it's an ID4. There's no covering it up. It is what it is. From the back, it looks to me like an ID4, a little different, but the front, as long as I'm looking at the front, I know I'm looking at an Audi. What do you think? Why do you think they did that?
Well, they want to use the same parts bin. They've invested in all these parts. They've tooled them up. So the more that you can reuse that stuff, you lower your costs. Everybody's worried about, are they going to get enough scale going to EVs? The faster they get to scale, the lower their costs are. Maybe they can make a profit on it. But if you don't make them look different, you're being penny wise and pound foolish.
Exactly.
Spend the money to really give the customer something that's truly different. Now, under the skin, something that anything where the customer doesn't touch, see, feel, experience it, sure, take it out of the parts bin. Yeah. But if you're trying to differentiate one brand from another, especially Audi, which makes a ton of money, spend the money.
Yeah, well, I will tell you there's the Undertaker's rule, burlap where it doesn't show. It's kind of like for coffins. I think that's kind of the thing that they've missed. Maybe we should have done the thing on history and talked about when General Motors, they lost a ton of market share. And remember that Ford ad? There was a Ford ad that the guy comes up and he says, yes, could you get
the valet.
The valet.
To the valet.
Yeah. Oh, bring over my Cadillac.
Yeah.
And the guy brings over a Chevy, then he brings over a Pontiac and whatever. And then the other guy comes walking up and another valet comes in and he says, my Lincoln, please.
Yeah.
And boom, the Lincoln shows up and the guy's still looking at, no, that's not my car. No, that's a... Yeah, so I think that somebody should have shown that commercial to the guys over at VW. I really don't understand. I don't understand what's going on at VW. I kind of like Dietz, but apparently he made some huge mistakes.
He got fired.
And he got fired for it. But I'm not sure how anybody's going to be able to dig out from underneath. And I heard recently that Ford is moving away from the VW platform, which personally I think is maybe I shouldn't even say this, a really good idea. But I think that hitching your wagon to somebody who's making a lot of mistakes is
Well, here's VW's problem, and this is a problem that everybody in the industry made, almost everybody in the industry. You know, and you got to go back about 5 years when these decisions were made. So EV sales are minuscule, minuscule, minuscule. Even Tesla's still losing billions of dollars at that point. And everybody's like, okay, we got to do EVs because the government's telling us we have to, especially in Europe. You know, they're going to ban ICE after 2035. So what do? I mean, it's going to take a massive investment. So very logically, they said, hey, look, we can modify these ICE platforms to accommodate batteries and electric motors. So MQB, which was their all one-size-fits-all ICE platform, they modified that and called it MEB.
Yeah.
And you know, pretty much everybody else did the same thing. BMW, Mercedes, Ford pretty much did this. You know, the Mach-E is based on the C2 platform, same as the Escape. They took the Lightning, they modified that. They took the E-Transit, they modified that. So, and that was a very logical decision. You can build them in the same plants. They can pretty much go down the same line. You save a ton of time and money, but you end up with a platform with what I call scar tissue.
Yeah.
It's a compromise. It's a compromise to accommodate ICE, hybrid, PHEV, and battery. And so you end up with something that's more expensive and heavier, which is bad for BEV. Plus, you can't take advantage of the productivity advantages that you can get with an ICE, or with a BEV, excuse me, where you can take anywhere from 25 to 30% of the labor content out of that vehicle if you dedicate a plant to making only BEVs.
Right.
And so, like I said, it was a very logical decision 5 years ago. Today, it stinks. It doesn't work. And so, all the legacies, with the exception of GM, which did go clean sheet with Ultium from the get-go, they're all in a mad scramble to come out with dedicated BEV platforms. And but most of them won't hit the market until about 2025.
And that's going to be a problem for everybody. I think, or everybody except for Tesla or any of the other guys that did a bespoke or ground up white clean sheet. Yeah. So I think that the one company that's the most worrisome for me as to what are they going to do is got to be VW. VW to me, I don't know. Oliver Bloom must be shaking in his shoes. I wouldn't take his job for $1 billion.
Yeah, they have a structural problem. I mean, an organizational structural problem. They're very, very siloed. Most of the legacies are, but Volkswagen especially so. They launched this Cariad program to come up with the software-defined car. They were 2 years into it, and the whole thing collapsed. And that's why Deese finally did get fired. And well, so
he hired something like 10 or 20,000 people.
They hired 10,000 software engineers.
But they didn't get them from California, I heard.
Well, maybe they did. But the problem, this comes to the structural organization of the company. This was an ICE company, a very mechanical company, trying to do software. So they organized how everything was going to be done just like it's always been done, the old way. And you need the Silicon Valley approach. And so it blew up in their face. They're trying to relaunch the whole program. And now this is pushing cars that were supposed to come out in 2025 are now going to come out, if everything goes well now, 2027 or 28. So it's a big problem.
I really think that VW has got to have not just a brilliant car that comes out, but they've got to have some tremendous amount of luck.
Plus,
you know what the other thing is? The thing that's really unlucky and for them is the shareholders. Who owns the shares? Who's on the board? And these folks are unions and basically places that have huge number of factories in their own little locale. They don't want to see EVs show up because there's so few people needed to make an electric vehicle. So that's what I think might be even more dramatic for them.
One other problem too at VW, the styling. I mean, the ID4, what a snooze in my eyes. I mean, there's probably people who love it, and I hate to insult them if they do, but in my book, that ID4 is a snooze. So they just fired They didn't fire him. They took their head of design out of the VW brand, brought in the guy that had been running design at Bentley. So that should...
when did that happen?
Just last week, I want to say.
No kidding.
Just very recently. So, but still, you know, even if this guy comes in and he's brilliant, and let's hope for their sake that he is, the first of his designs are not going to show up for another 3 or 4 years.
Mostly 5. It takes quite a while to get from point A to point B, especially if you're going to have a real platform that's focused on a BEV kind of product. It's going to take them. It's going to take them forever, and I can guarantee you that the in-house fighting must be out of this world. I can't even imagine.
It's always been a very political company, and even more so now.
Yeah. So let's go to, okay, so there's a problem there at VW. So let's go to the turning point, I think, for the other company that I thought was in deep trouble, and that's Toyota. I've changed my mind. I put out a little thing on Twitter actually today and said, I take back half those nasty things I said about Toyota. I think they may be going in the right direction now. So what do you think? Yeah.
So anyway, so Toyota, same thing as we were talking, you know, VW had a nice platform, MQB. They modified it, called it MEB. Toyota's got a platform that one size fits all for everything, right? It's called TNGA, Toyota New Generation Architecture. Right. So then they added an E, so it's ETNGA.
Oh, now we can.
And now they just stuffed that full of batteries. Same thing, same problem with Volkswagen. It's fine, it works, but you ended up with, or they ended up with something that's heavier, more expensive to manufacture, did not get the productivity benefits that we talked about in their assembly plant. So there's been a faction within Toyota that is saying, hey, time out. We got to scrap this ETNGA. Right. We got to go with a clean sheet. Well, Akio and his people had come out with a strategy that said, no, hybrids are really, really good. And it's actually a pretty good argument. No range anxiety, no infrastructure worries. You just get in and you drive and you can just fill up the tank and you can lower your carbon footprint going that way. But you cannot, so I'm told by the real environmental experts, and I don't mean, you know, the environmentalists, I mean the people within the industry who really study this, what's it going to take to get to true carbon neutrality? They tell me you can't do it with hybrids. No, you cannot do it.
You cannot make it work unless you're going to the grocery store and back and you never ever fill up your gas tank. So I look at this stuff, and really and truly the biggest mistake had nothing to do with hybrids. It had to do with that focus on hydrogen. And for me, like if we look at a truck, a big truck, like a Freightliner or whatever, a Class 8. So the only guys that I know of that are going to have a chance to make hydrogen work is going to be Nikola. And by the way, they had some kind of a big deal last week while I was at the golf thing, and I really didn't even know about it. But I have gotten a bunch of people phoning back saying, "Hey, you know what? This thing looks for real. What do you think of hybrid? Or sorry, what do you think of hydrogen as a fuel for big trucks?" And I'm in all day. I mean, for a big truck, I got to go, millions and millions of miles. But you can't go wrong. Hydrogen lasts forever. I mean, electric vehicle using batteries and hybrid to me and hydrogen fuel cells is a brilliant move for anything huge like an airplane or something like that. So maybe Nikola can shed some of its past transgressions and move on, but I can never see this working ever. After looking at the Toyota, without a question of a doubt, has got the best fuel cell, period. But it's so big, so heavy, so complicated, so impossible to manufacture. I couldn't see how they were going to ever get it to the marketplace. It just, I couldn't make it.
Well, I totally agree with you. Long haul trucking makes a lot of sense with hydrogen because the batteries are heavy, and a fuel cell system will not be as heavy. But the more important thing is for long haul trucking, the fuel stops they're going to stop at. So you can have hydrogen there. You don't have to put it everywhere.
Right.
And but the reason Toyota's gone into, or what I should say, the reason any Japanese car company or South Korean car company or even some of the Chinese have gotten into it is there is mega government subsidies to do it.
Really?
Japan has got to import all of its fuel. They've given up on nukes after the Fukushima disaster.
Yeah.
And so they're so focused on hydrogen. There is big government money for car companies to build hydrogen-fueled vehicles. I don't mean ICE hydrogen, I mean fuel cell ones. So that's why, who are the only car companies in the world with fuel cell cars? Toyota, Honda, and Hyundai.
Right, and quite frankly, when I was reading up on some of the statements that Akio
Toyota with a D.
Toyota with a D said, I mean, I couldn't believe it. Oh no, we can just burn hydrogen in a basically a gas engine. Oh no, you can't. I worked for Ford Motor Company at engine division, and I'm an engine engineer. And I can tell you right now, I know exactly what happens to that. That's not a fun project.
Actually, I think you probably can.
Well,
but here's the other thing then, getting back to what I said earlier. On long haul trucking, you've got dedicated fuel stops where you can have hydrogen.
Yeah.
Or if you're going to do cars, I mean, are we going to build a whole new hydrogen infrastructure? We can't even upgrade the grid.
Yeah, I really don't see that.
But here's the other thing, hydrogen storage.
Yeah.
The tank on your car, is it going to be liquid? Is it going to be, cryogenically frozen, protected?
Yeah.
So the expense of the fuel tank alone is out of the world.
Well, you're looking at a NASA project, and we actually worked on that because hydrogen is used quite a bit in space.
So screw hydrogen. What else you got?
Well, yeah, let's move on. Okay, so we've kicked the daylights out of that, but I really do think Toyota's got a good upward strategy.
We'll see. Okay, so there's this new guy, Sato. Sato Koji or Koji Sato. And maybe this is why Akio got kicked upstairs and to become chairman, because now this, in Japan, it's so, or Asian culture, it's so important to save face.
Yeah.
So if Akio steps out of the picture, the new guy can come in and say, okay, clean sheet Bebs, we're going whole hog.
Yeah.
And then now Akio doesn't lose face from having to change his mind.
Well, I have never met Sato-san, but I've heard plenty about him, and he used to run Lexus, and I believe that he will have a small cooling off period, and then he's going to move full steam ahead, probably 180 degrees different than Toyota-san.
Yeah, so, I bet you're right.
So let's move on to something a little closer to home. The big three were that I figured had problems. Number one definitely was VW. Number two was Toyota, which now has turned a corner. And the other one was GM. But GM has all kinds of new surprises. So today they said 4680 is their new best friend, 4680 cylindrical batteries, but they're building a plant that makes pouches. What do you think about that?
Well, they didn't. I didn't see any confirmation that they're going to do 4680. What Mary Barra did say is that Ultium, their battery system, is chemistry agnostic and it's form factor agnostic.
But
so,
okay, so I've worked on battery plants. One of our guys, Mark Ellis, he installed maybe 30 plus battery plants in China. The plants were actually made here. We gave that technology away because no batteries, we don't need batteries. So Mark spent a lot of time in China putting these battery plants up. And I can tell you what, a cylindrical battery plant is like vastly different than what you're going to see with pouch or prismatic or anything else. None of them have anything in the way of what I would classify as interchangeable automation. So is there some new thing that we should know about?
I don't know.
The chemistry may be agnostic, but I'm telling you what, form factor is a very big deal.
So they've got the plant in Lordstown that's up and running right now. They're building another one in Lansing, Michigan. They're building another one in Spring Hill, Tennessee. Those are probably set and done, and those are going to be pouches. Then there's this fourth plant that they were going to do with LG that LG just backed out of. That was going to go into Indiana, I think Newcastle, Indiana.
Someplace,
And GM has said, no, we're still going to go ahead with a fourth plant, obviously not with LG.
So
Could that be the one? And they've said, and there's going to be more battery plants beyond that too.
But it still takes a couple years.
Oh yeah.
Minimum
Easy.
to get these things up and running.
Right.
I mean, and if you shift gears, I mean, I do plant layouts all the time, and when somebody says, this is the kind of automation I want, this is it, and it's all pouch, and it's, scrub that, we're going to make cylindrical. Well, that plant layout's no good anymore. Maybe I got the beams in the wrong place. All kinds of
Well, who's this Chinese company that's coming to Michigan? Hosian.
I do not know them.
Okay, so it's controversial. You know, you saw the governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, say, we don't want CATL, that's Chinese, we don't want them. But some people have
But
speculated.
the Ford plant's the same way.
Well, Ford and CATL are getting together. That may end up in Michigan.
But didn't the governor or whatever say that he didn't want that plant? That's the one in Tennessee or something.
No, Virginia.
Is it Virginia?
Right. He said he wanted nothing to do with the Chinese.
Well, you know, it's a funny thing, but the Chinese got their chemistry and their techniques and technology from the United States. Mm-hmm. They put the plants up. They learned how to manufacture the stuff. Then they got good at it. Then they invented new stuff. Who's inventing the new stuff in the United States? Nobody. So the idea is...
Well, I think that's a little unfair.
Well, it's there's a lot of guys that are looking at battery technology and battery chemistry and saying, yeah, that's pretty good. But the fastest way for us in the United States, in order to catch up or exceed...
Go with the Chinese.
Go with the Chinese.
Absolutely.
Find out what they're doing. Manufacture them here, and bingo, you're...
Yeah. No,
this is how the United States got great.
Totally agree. Totally. Yeah. Look, CATL is not a government-owned company.
No.
You know, it's publicly traded, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
And so, okay, in China, everything's connected to the party in some way, shape, or form. I get it. But this is not a government-owned entity.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I would welcome CATL. You know, if they want to come to the state of Michigan and invest $3 billion and create thousands of jobs, I'd be jumping for it.
I can't even imagine why anybody would turn their back on putting their state ahead of some emotional decision making. This isn't emotion. This is science, math, and business. Not, well, I don't like those Chinese guys. It sounds kind of like, I don't know, racist. Could that possibly be? But at the end of the day, I look at this stuff and I say, what are they thinking? Aren't they supposed to be the kind of folks who are going to make a future? Isn't that what a statesman is supposed to be? Yeah. To create the next generation of wealth for the people that they're supposed to be.
Sandy, it reminds me of when, remember, Honda was the first foreign automaker in modern times to build an assembly plant in the United States. They went into Marysville, Ohio. And if you remember back, this is 40 years ago, huge hue and cry. Oh my God, the Japanese, blah, blah, blah. Now we don't think anything of it.
No.
And that will happen with the Chinese too.
And
over time.
I think, so, because if you think about it, we just got done with a war with Japan. My dad and the uncles that I had that fought in that part of the world, it was they were very unhappy about anything coming over. It was Japanese junk, you know, that kind of thing. And at the very end, I walked up to I can't remember which uncle, but one of my uncles, and I'm looking down and I said, I thought you said you'd never buy anything Japanese. Hey, this car is like. And so he gives me the extolling the virtues of his Toyota. I mean, he couldn't say enough good about it. And he figured he was getting ripped off by the automakers right here in this neighborhood.
The American ones, right.
Yeah, the American ones. So anyways, the other thing that I got to talk about is this Gen 6 engine. So we're heading in the direction of, EVs and all that other stuff. And General Motors has popped out 2 new engines in the last little while. This one being the new Gen 6 engine. What do you? Why?
Well, it's really smart of them, right? Because The small block Chevy V8 came out in what, 1955. This is the sixth generation of that engine. I mean, the guys who designed that engine way back when in the 50s, they were brilliant. They're all dead, but they were brilliant. I mean, because the guts of that engine are pretty much the same in the sixth generation as what they came up with, but it's got computer control and fuel injection and all kinds of other cool stuff, right? But GM is making boatloads of money on full-size pickups and SUVs, and that's what's going to pay for its investments in EVs. And look, the internal combustion engine, full-size pickups and SUVs that use it, they're not going away anytime soon. GM and Ford and Stellantis need those products to fund the EV things. In fact, this is their biggest advantage over all the startups. Not so much Tesla anymore, Tesla's up and running, but Lucid doesn't have anything that it's selling making profits. You know, Rivian doesn't have any source of income other than, you know, the paltry amount of vehicles that it's making right now. It's got to run to the investment community to get money. So I think it's really smart of GM to come out with a next-gen V8 engine that's going to generate all the money that's going to pay for all the EVs.
Well, certainly the money is the aspect that scares the daylights out of me for all of the, let's say, traditional OEMs. I have no idea where they're going to borrow the money from. Money is really tight right now. I've got so many people asking, can you help me out here? Can you help me out there? Like I don't do that kind of work, but I can set them up sometimes with other folks.
I don't think it's a problem at all, Sandy. You know, everybody has asked me, where are they going to come? All these car companies are spending billions and billions and billions on EVs. Where are they going to come up with the money? And I tell them they were going to spend that much anyway. GM and Ford typically spend $8 billion a year on new product development and $8 billion a year on CapEx, capital expenditures, plants and equipment. That's what they're spending. It's that instead of going into ICE products, although GM's spending $850 million on this next-gen V8, but they're spending many more billions on EV stuff. So all they're doing is they're pretty much shifting money that would have gone into ICE.
Changing the budget.
Yeah, and they're saying, oh, we're going to spend $30 billion by 2025. They were going to spend that much anyway. So I don't think it's a problem for any of them.
Well, I have one thing that I can't get over that's a problem, and you just told me about it, and that is the Lyriq. So 122 sales here in the United States and 2,400 in China. What do you think the deal is there?
I just stumbled across that. Mary Barra was talking to the analysts this week because they posted their year-end earnings, and she said, hey, we've sold 2,400 Lyriqs in China. Well, 2,400, as you know, is not a lot. But compared to the 122 that they delivered in the United States, it's like, what the hell's going on here?
Well, that's the question. What do you think is going on?
So to me, there's probably two things. A, even though their battery plant in Lordstown is ramping up, and they say the ramp up is going well and all that, it's still ramping up. So batteries may be an issue, and it's easier to get batteries in China. But I think there is, specifically to the Lyriq, some sort of problem. Maybe it's got to do with software. There's chatter out in the social media world that there's a software problem with it. I did a video about this very problem. Mark Royce responded to my video. And
he said congratulations, and I'm going to nominate you for the Pulitzer Prize.
Obviously, he didn't agree with me, which is fine. That's fine. What he said is, look, we've got to rebuild the Cadillac brand. Quality counts more than anything, and so we are going to make sure that everyone leaving the plant is perfect. I'm adding a few words to what he said.
Okay, so I worked for Bentley and Rolls-Royce. When we were trying to turn them around, because they were making no money, and that was the mantra. We have to build it 5 times to make sure that our customers are happy. And I go, that doesn't sound right. I don't buy into that for a moment, because you design in quality. Build is like Bob, blindfolded, one-arm builder should be able to put it together. because I've designed the quality inside, engineered the quality inside. So, you know what? Let's move on to Ford because I don't want to go down that rat hole. So let me just grab this. Truck of the year, the Lightning.
Motor Trend.
Motor
David.
Trend, yep.
I'm on the North American Car and Truck of the Year jury, and we also nominated or named the Lightning as the Truck of the
Well,
Year.
I'll tell you what. Because these guys sold me one of their trucks, and I used it when we had the blackout here in Auburn Hills, and saved my butt for a week. Every day we plugged all our electric stuff into that Lightning. Every day was a cash day. There's nobody ever going to be blowing me away from that truck. I cannot. And my guys, we have several different vehicles that we could use here. And when my guys are going to the airport, which one do they take? That one.
Interesting.
The guys here, my techs here, and that truck is almost every weekend somebody's taking it for hauling this or doing that or what have you. Because apart from all of the you hear all this noise about how you can't tow from here to the end of the road, but that doesn't seem to be what's happening here at Munro and Associates with my Munro people. They're borrowing that, and they're touring. They're bringing stuff from wherever to wherever, and I've never heard a single solitary except for Chargers. Now that will get you going in a hurry, but apart from that, the truck itself, fabulous. This is now some of the truck company or some of the car companies and whatnot are investigating whether or not they should go with Tesla Chargers. If I was in charge of a Ford Motor Company, that truck, well, everything, I would abandon ship on every other Charger and go with Tesla. They never go down. I mean, I don't know if you saw Out of Spec, the guy in charge of that. He did this, oh my God, scathing review of Electrify America, Easy Go or Easy EV Go or
Right.
whatever. All of them. Threw rocks at all of them. He only had some kind words to ABB, but the rest of them, they were under the bus.
Yeah.
Holy mackerel. But this thing, I mean, the only thing holding it back is the infrastructure. Yeah.
No,
So I really
I'm
like
really
it.
impressed. It's an ICE-based platform, but man, they did their homework on it. It's a terrific truck. I compared it to the Rivian. If you look at the footprint, track versus wheelbase, the F-150 Lightning is about 8% bigger
Yeah.
than a Rivian. It has a slightly smaller battery,
Yeah.
but it has slightly more range.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger truck, with a smaller battery, more range. And we know Ford is working on a clean sheet design that'll be out 2025, 26, something like that. But they took what they had and they made a really good EV truck out
I'll
of it.
tell you
I'm
what.
super impressed by the
As far as
Lightning.
I'm concerned, this thing is brilliant. The only thing that, like I said, I switched to the Tesla charging system, but the only other thing that really and truly needs to happen is the plant that it's in is too small. They made a mistake. They should have. And
Well, hold on. So by the third quarter, Jim Farley has said that they're
Yeah.
going to be at 150,000 a year run rate.
but how many have they got sitting, waiting, twiddling their thumbs?
I know, but do you want to put in a big plant? Big plant? They're building that new Rouge plant down in Tennessee, which is where I'm guessing the clean sheet design's going to go. So they already did one expansion at
Right, they did.
at the
Dearborn.
Rouge.
Yeah.
They did a second expansion at the Rouge. That's going to get them to 150,000 a year. And then it's just a few years later, you're going to have this big monster of a plant fire up. So that's why I'm thinking they just decided, no, we're not going to blow out another wall and add more square footage.
Whatever. I just think that they can probably sell any truck that they push out of that. And speaking of Ford, what about the price reductions? Okay, so Tesla
yeah.
came out with their
Yeah.
stuff, and now Ford has come out with their. Do you think they're making any money on that?
Probably not. Probably not.
So
In
it's
fact,
like,
I'm not
keep
even
it-
sure they were making money before they cut the price. of
Well,
it.
as you know, we've torn that apart and costed it and whatnot. So I can tell you, they should be making some profit.
money.
Yeah, but they're giving some away
But here's where I think Ford is brilliant and where I think General Motors is missing the boat. Ford's main strength really as a company is marketing.
Yeah.
These guys, boy, do they know how to sell stuff. So they recognize right now there is a finite number of people who are going to buy EVs. Get them right now. Get them in one of your trucks.
Exactly.
Get them in at least 3 to 5 years. By the time they're coming off lease, you're going to have your next version ready
Right.
and move them into that.
Right.
And so GM, which is, slow walking its way into EVs,
Yeah.
I think is going to pay the price for this. I think Ford has beat them in marketing, hands down.
Wow, I'm telling you, when you start looking at the Bronco and all the other vehicles that they got coming down the pike, everything I see says, "Oh, that's a winner." That's what. There was something that just come out a little while ago. I didn't really pay enough attention, but apparently Jeep has taken it seriously, almost gutting Jeep. And where did it all go? Well, it all went to the Bronco, the Maverick, the whatever. Everybody's moving in that direction.
Well, look, how did the industry let Jeep get away with it for so long? I mean, Jeep went from, a nice little business to, what are they doing now globally? 2.5 million units or something? I mean,
Well, it dropped
the growth has
significantly.
been stunning.
Phenomenal.
And everybody let them get away with it. And then finally, Ford woke up and went, hey, wait a minute, we got this great heritage in this thing called the Bronco. Let's bring back the Bronco.
Right.
And we'll do a Bronco Sport. In fact, the way that these things are going, I think they could even expand the line and probably will. But yeah, sales of the Jeep Cherokee dropped to only 40,000 units last year.
How did
So
they do
they're
that?
closing the plant, Belvidere, Illinois.
Yeah.
They're closing it at the end of this month. And I'll bet you $1 million it's because Ford is selling about 100,000 Bronco Sports a year. That came right out of the Cherokee.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I could be wrong, but I just think that the French Connection, or whatever you want to call it, I think they waited a long time before they wanted to make any decisions. And sometimes it's nice to eat caviar and drink champagne. However, not in the auto industry. If you aren't moving every day, you're in the parade of automotive. The elephants are right in back of you. You sit down for a moment, and the elephants are going to be trampling you. And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I cut Stellantis a little bit of slack for this reason. Sergio Marchionne was running it as Fiat Chrysler.
Yeah.
Boom, he dies. They put Mike Manley in charge. Mike, very competent CEO and everything like that. He's running AutoNation today.
Yeah.
But he wasn't the guy the board probably was going to put into place. And Mike ran the company well, but he wasn't going to take it off in any kind of bold new venture. Then comes, they tried to merge first with Renault. That fell apart. Then they merged with Peugeot. Carlos Tavares is running it. Stellantis did not become an official corporation until January 1st of 2021.
Right. Okay.
And now he spends all of 2021 trying to figure out, how do I put this company together? And now 2022, they started. So when you say they've been sitting, eating caviar, drinking champagne.
Maybe not, but the problem is, I've been in transitional kinds of companies. They're being taken over or whatever. But you know what? The day-to-day, whatever goes on in the clouds, that didn't affect anybody that was in the ranks. We had a job to do. We still designed product. We still cranked the product out. We still had to look at the competition. We still had.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, based on what I heard from, and so many guys quit at Chrysler. So many just, I'm out of here. I've had Mercedes. I've had. Fiat, but then there was the Cerberus. Oh my gosh, and they just said enough's enough, and they walked away.
Right.
That was the real talent. And when they walked away, who came to take their place? Nobody, because there was a hiring freeze. I mean, you got to be smart about some of this stuff. And anyhow, let's move on, because we've got a couple of other things here I really want to talk about. So we talked about the Ford price drop, and I can tell you for sure that
Well, that was a direct reaction.
that was a
to
direct
Tesla.
reaction to Tesla.
In fact, I should shamelessly plug my own show. So tomorrow,
Go.
Autoline After Hours, the whole thing's going to be about the price war.
Cool.
That Tesla has triggered.
Well, I'll tell you what. Just so everybody knows, I am not being hired by Tesla, but I will tell you, I've taken their cars apart. I know how much everything costs. I know how much profit they should be making, net profit. And because of all the things that they don't do, like they don't really pay too many tier 1 suppliers to build product. They build them in-house. That means that they save a lot of money. There's no profit, there's no overhead, it's all taken care of. They don't do any marketing. $600 a car is what we used to say was about the cost of marketing per vehicle. That's a lot of money. They don't have that. When I say that they're probably gross profit is somewhere around, at the top end, probably around 38, down to maybe 35, there's more net profit in there than you can possibly believe. Mm-hmm. And when they cut their prices, I saw the big thing in Bloomberg with the, come and buy a free car or get a free Tesla. They're not free. They're still making a load of money. They're making more money per car with that price cut than anybody else on the planet.
Yeah.
And I think that Ford maybe they did it to keep up with the Joneses, but I think that there may be there might be a moniker there because I know that they make some money. And even with the price reductions, this is a truck. It's different than a car. I make more money on these things. Having that little bit of a price reduction isn't really going to affect their ability to make money. I think the Lightning makes money. In fact, I know it. I know that Lightning makes money. The other vehicles like the Mustang and whatnot, having it come down a bit, the Mach-E, I think that one might be a little skinnier, but at the end of the day, who is not doing anything? Who's going to say, no, just buy my car because I'm not going to give you any discounts?
Yeah.
What did you say was happening in China with some of the car companies that said, nope, we're going to stay where we are?
NIO and Xpeng, it looks like
Xpeng,
Xpeng, but it's pronounced
Xpeng.
Xpeng. They said, no, we're not going to cut our prices. We're not going to go chase Tesla. So NIO sales fell 12% last month, and Xpeng sales fell 60%.
You know, that's a bad afternoon. I would hate to be the CEO or president having to face the board. Just trust me on this. Trust you? They're probably loading up the shotguns right now. So we're going to shut it down. Anyway, thanks, John. I really appreciate you coming by.
No, thanks for having me.
This has been fun. It went by quick. I have no idea how long it was, but when this goes on, it must be, we're over an hour.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for watching, and keep watching both Munro Live and
Autoline After Hours?
Absolutely.
Or Autoline?
Or
Yeah.
Autoline
Check us
Detroit,
out on
yeah.
YouTube.
Yep. So YouTube and the channels.
Autoline.tv is our website, or you just look for the Autoline Network on YouTube.
Perfect. So he's got a lot more channels than I do. But anyway, at the end of the day, I was happy to have John come in. It's very difficult to get him here because he's got such a busy schedule. Yeah. So anyways, thanks again for watching, and stay tuned to both of us and to find out what's going on in the world. Thank you. Bye-bye.